Good day, everybody. We're at May 19th, 2025. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. I do know that our open houses were very, very well visited by people out there looking to purchase real estate. Lots of varying time frames, so I'll cover that in today's update. Also, we're going to talk about fat loss and fitness, and then, of course, into the artificial intelligence realm with some news, and you can't really stop that machine. It seems like there's breaking news every several hours here with regard to artificial intelligence. We'll talk a little bit about those updates and what's going to be happening on that front, I would assume, incredibly quickly, a lot faster than anybody expects. Now, let's talk about Santa Clarita real estate. Looking at the current inventory, 739 total active units for sale. This is going to be single family residences, condominiums, and townhomes. I'm surprised every time I host an open house at the buyers that come in that have been looking for a while. They might have an agent, they might not have an agent, but what they all have in common is they don't have that market update. And it's a shame. If you are a real estate agent, you need to be explaining to your clients where the market is, and you have to have real tangible numbers. I really believe just telling them, well, it's a seller's market, it's a buyer's market, you're really missing the boat. They need to see some data, some information, understand it. So whenever I'm talking to people that come in, I'm just offering advice in the open houses, and not so much advice on whether it's time to buy or sell, but advice on informing them on where the market is, and then what are these possibilities that could end up happening. Why are certain buyers buying now? Why are certain sellers selling now? What is that motivation? If in fact what's holding back these buyers, is it the same thing that's holding back other buyers? So when they come into the open house, I, of course, introduce myself and my partner, and then we start talking about the market and what's happening in the real estate realm. How many units are for sale? What did that look like a few months ago? What did that look like next year? Where are the interest rates currently? Where are they proposed to go in the future? And then as you're purchasing, especially in the localized market, what should you be looking for? Are Mello-Roos concerned? Can they actually stop at some point? Because a lot of folks are promising that these Mello-Roos are coming to an end on a particular date. Are they actually going to finish? Tell me about HOAs, the homeowners associations, because a majority of the real estate listings out here do have an HOA. At the new housing, they have higher than extra taxes. What's that about? How can you get that maybe taken care of, at least up to some point, by some kind of credit by the builder? Does that actually happen? What about interest rates? If I don't want to pay a super high interest rate, is there a particular thing I can ask the seller to pay that's going to maybe take care of that interest rate, the extra fee, for a particular period of time in some kind of a buy down fashion? These are questions that buyers have that I guess aren't being attended to. In addition, I'm not a real estate lender, but when I do talk to buyers that come in, I do talk about how important it is to follow up with those people they've been referred to in a very business-like manner. Of course, we're all blessed to have clients. On the other side of that, though, you are blessed to have your real estate agent. But the most important part of that transaction isn't really what your real estate's doing for you. It's the fact that you've chosen a particular agent. So they should be humbled beyond belief that you're going to use them, be loyal to them, and use them throughout the real estate process, because there are so many choices. Now, of course, all of us aren't created equal. I'm going to be different than somebody else. And, somebody might have a much better track record than me. Somebody might have a worse track record than me. It's hard to be able to tell you with a straight face that I'm the best in the world, even though I believe it. But truthfully, you have to find the best fit for you. You have to find the person that's giving you the real estate information. And you have to find the person that you believe can best represent you with the strength and agility, with that experience and that knowledge, so you can move forward with whether you're trying to buy or sell, feeling confident that you're going to have your tail covered when it comes to all aspects of the real estate transaction, whether that's you're the seller on the seller side, whether you're a buyer on the buyer side. That's very, very important. And then, of course, following up and finding out if these folks are really who they say they are. That's not a hard thing to do. All you have to do is Google somebody's name and look and see where they are online. Look, does their social media influence match their in-person influence? and these other things. There's nothing like a sit down in front of somebody, even if it's not in the flesh, over Zoom or some other interview type method. That's incredibly important, especially if you're selecting agents off of the online systems. Conversation that came up were review sites yesterday with somebody that walked in. And he mentioned, well, can't you just pay for placement? Absolutely. It depends on the website, but I do know that certain websites that have very high ratings, where people talk a lot about reviewing and reviewing entities, service providers, and these sorts of things. It's magic when you have certain reviews that are hidden from public view, but you sign up to be one of their agents. Those reviews seem to just kind of propagate and come out where they were hidden behind a wall you couldn't see before. Now all of a sudden they're out there for public view. It's one of those things. So as far as I told this cat, I said, you can believe somebody has all these reviews on these real estate syndication websites saying how great they are. But in essence, it's going to be you that's going to be the judge whether or not they're going to fit the bill for you. You can read everything somebody else says, but I can't tell you how many times I've gone into an establishment and that's had an incredibly low rating, and I myself thought it was just the bee's knees. Maybe they were having it on a bad day, maybe their job, maybe they have family and friends on the other side of the equation in another similar business and they're trying to beat them up. Whatever the method and magic is, watch out for yourself. Make sure you know the truth and then take it from there. So that's just some advice for you. Also, one of the things that I was going to talk about, when you're speaking with a real estate agent or a lender, make sure you're continuing to follow up with them in an email or some kind of written form just to verify what they're telling you is true. So if people were coming into my open house yesterday and I say, this particular house, the seller will take half of the listing price, they should be very quick to follow up with me and get that in writing, because maybe I'm doing that to try to solicit some kind of a decision at that moment, which would be totally unethical and potentially some kind of way against the law, because now I'm baiting and switching and it's all this big game. If somebody tells you something, I'm sure that nobody would be stupid enough to say something so crass and so out of the realm of possibility. But if they're telling you things that really don't make sense, or you think that it sounds like that there's some kind of a weird advantage that they're trying to muster by particular word choices, comments, by the way they're talking, follow up with them in an email. See if, in fact, what they're telling you, they're able to back up in that regard. Hey, Connor, I talked to you a couple days ago. You did mention at the open house that the seller would take half of what the listing price was, blah, 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 blah. I just wanted to follow up with you and see if that's actually the case. 9 times out of 10, maybe even 9.9 times out of 10, you're going to find out that the agent was just kind of over talking and underselling. Overselling, under talking. Anyway, same thing with lenders. If you're in the process, escrow officers, title people, whomever you're in the real estate process with, you definitely want to make sure you follow up with them to get it in the written record. If it's verbal, if you have a witness, that might work out, but I was a cop for a long time. Verbal really is a difficult thing to back up, because most of the people that are listening in have a vested interest. There really are no true independent witnesses. At least they're difficult to find, especially in a real estate transaction, because you have people on your side, the agent has people on their side. Same thing with the real estate lenders. So then follow up with them in writing just to make sure what they're telling you is true. This is all good advice. Santa Clarita Openhouses.com is my system. Let me know when I can help you, and I do appreciate you watching. Now let's talk about some fat loss. Fat loss, GLP-1 agonists, the drugs that people are taking, and also how can you actually get past where you've been in your past when you've tried to lose weight before. And one of the biggest things that people seem to talk a lot about is how easy it is. If it were easy, all of us would be walking around in our best shape. It's not easy. It's very difficult. I failed thousands of times to lose weight, body fat, and it was just a decision I had made when I got into my midlife, into my 50s, when I decided and figured out actually the best way to do it, at least for me. And I have to say that before you do anything I'm telling you, anything about fasting, hormone replacement, any of this stuff, you got to see your doctor. And especially with any kind of drugs that you might be taking, including hormones, your doctor is the one that you need to get it from. There's off-market, black market sites, but you're really going to be creating a problem. And again, it's going to be incredibly unsafe. Same thing when I talk about fasting for longer lengths of time. If you're taking medication, you maybe have something you don't even know about, and you start to do the things that people tell you, and then all of a sudden you end up in the hospital in a really bad way because you didn't ask your medical doctor's advice. Now, if they're telling you something that doesn't sound, it doesn't make sense to you. If they're saying, well, you know, if you miss one meal, it's going to put you in the hospital. If they're saying silly things like that, depending on your own condition, maybe you're taking a particular medicine that missing one meal would actually end you up in the hospital. That's why you have to have a conversation with them. But if they're saying things that really don't make sense, let's say you're sitting in their office and it's the middle of the day and they're saying it's nighttime outside, you know, those are these types of things. You might want to get another opinion. You might want to talk to somebody else. Don't go doctor shopping and trying to find that best answer that fits. But there is very good conclusive evidence out there. There's been very well done research on not eating for a little while, how that does benefit people in the highest of regard. So it could be something that you want to entertain if you're in fact trying to break food addictions, get a handle on your fat, the fat content of your body, and maybe change your brain, actually change the way that you think about food. That's what it took for me. I was addicted for very many years to different types of very highly processed food, sugar, carbohydrates, Diet Coke, Coke Zero, all of these different things, Diet Pepsi. It didn't matter what it was, as long as it was sweet. Even if it didn't have the caloric content, I was drinking it, I was eating it, and I was thinking I was doing myself a great service by doing so because, well, I'm not drinking the real thing. Yeah, there's a lot of argument on both of those sides, you know, almost like, well, if you're going to do it, you might as well drink the real thing because the fake thing is also doing you harm. You need to do the research if you're interested in changing any of your habits, but there really is nothing like a lifestyle where you're able to just swear off of everything for a little while, have water, maybe black coffee, things that don't cause any dopamine release. The black coffee, I suppose, the caffeine it would do those sorts of things. But just be pure for a while and see what that feels like. I do know that once you miss a day or two of eating, you definitely have catapulted yourself to the top 1% of the world, because most people can't go even missing a meal, nor would they even try because it makes no sense to them. Look into fasting. There are some great books out there I can recommend. One of the best ones I've ever read was The Obesity Code by Jason Fung. You can find a lot of free videos on YouTube by Jason, F-U-N-G. He was a kidney doctor, aka a nephrologist, and he did a great job talking about the fasting style and how it actually helped his clients. He was watching people that were experiencing having limbs removed because of the way that diabetes had really affected their kidneys and their own longevity, totally impacting it. He saw that fasting was actually able to heal a lot of these things, and in some cases completely fix diabetes. Things to think about. It could be that diet is responsible for a lot of things. I do know that when you go into a doctor, a lot of times they're not talking about what you're eating, and it seems like the way that the tobacco companies seem to own a lot of the big food chains now, and also the big processed food companies, it would kind of make sense that maybe they're making the food better and better tasting, so we want to buy more of it. And of course, that's every business's bottom line. If they can sell more cupcakes or more cakes or more cookies or more whatever it is, then of course their bottom line increases and they're doing much better. However, in the case of food, when you're putting it into your body, this billion-dollar body you have, something that was just magically put together over time, whether it was through evolutionary processes, natural selection, whether it was created by an omniscient being or God, either way, it's pretty remarkable. Now, when I start talking about the AI segment, maybe not so remarkable, but at least for us from a biological standpoint, how far we've gone, it's really been awesome. If you look at what you're putting into your machine, that could be a big detriment to you. Maybe it's causing you to store that extra body fat. Maybe it's causing you to have that extra poundage attached to your system. And when you get enough on the outside, then of course that fat starts growing on the inside, choking off those internal organs. So besides looking horrible, making you breathe heavy, making it difficult for you to tie your shoes, it's also creating an issue for you that is going to be detrimental over time. Maybe you haven't experienced it yet. Maybe you're at an age that just being fat is just being uncomfortable. But there comes a point when that fat starts to invade those internal organs and you start to create issues for yourself in a health way. And then all of a sudden, instead of your end of life being something that you might be able to enjoy, it becomes more of an issue where you're visiting doctors, going to doctor's appointments, you have to take certain medicines all the time, and it's just a problem. It's something that nobody needs to go through for the most part. Of course, if you have something that's not fat related as a result of your life, I'm sorry. But a lot of things that we develop over time are a result of eating incorrectly for a very long time, eating the things that maybe even the companies that manufacture those things pay for doctors to do studies and different types of investigators, different types of scientists to put together studies that say this is good for you in a certain moderated type way. And then people say moderation is great. There are certain things that I can't moderate, like heroin. If I ever tried it, I'm sure I wouldn't stop. So I can't moderate heroin. I can't even experiment or try it. Cocaine, same thing. PCP, probably not. Hallucinogens, LSD, probably not for me. Cannabis, these are just things I don't play with. Alcohol, I had that for quite a while. I don't do alcohol anymore. I don't drink alcohol. I don't even have a glass of wine. Even when I go on some kind of a trip and there's everybody drinking wine, I still have sparkling water just because wine's not good for me. I understand that for me, wine isn't a good fit. And then, I don't want to end up in jail and taking everybody with me. Not that that ever happened, because it didn't. Anyway, you see the point. It's just not good for me, so I just don't do it. And yes, you have to answer extra questions. People ask, oh my God, you don't drink? But you're on this trip and there are all these other people drinking and the wine is free and it's part of the thing. It's the inclusive package and this and that. Yeah, sorry, just don't do it. I look at this wasn't easy, and I'm still not where I want to be, but this was a journey to go from 365 pounds to 240 pounds, and then to start putting on enough muscle to get to where I'm at about 290 pounds. Now I'm on another cut, so now I'm fasting 5 days a week, having nice solid protein refeeds over the weekend until I trim the rest of this fat off. That's that plan. So as long as I don't give in and don't get out there and blow it out and go buy a pizza or a whole bunch of cakes and cookies or eat a whole bunch of ice cream during this time, it'll probably take 4, 5, 6 weeks and I'll trim off that 50 pounds of fat. If I am able to actually get that lean, I'll have to watch when I get halfway through and see how I look, how I feel, and see what's left. But you really don't know when your end date's going to be as far as dropping that fat. But with the fasting, it does happen relatively quickly. So it's something, if you want to go down that pathway, it really is the fastest way you can do things. The question is it good for you? Is it going to be healthy for you? Is it going to cause you medical issues? And besides it being hard, it does work. And besides it being hard, maybe it's something that will create some kind of a medical condition for you. So definitely hit up your doctor. But it did work for me. It works for a lot of other people. Some of the folks out there that are proponents of caloric restriction talk about how fasting is unhealthy for you. It's not good for you because your body lacks the nutrients. I would say, I've read other studies and listened to other doctors talk. There's plenty of nutrients stored in your body fat and in your system that actually get cannibalized when you start to go on a longer term fast. So it does make up for it. There's connective tissue. There's protein that gets absorbed in that take. Not directly from muscles, because what kind of body would your body be if it actually went after muscle when you missed a few meals? It doesn't store body fat to try to burn the muscle. It stores body fat, so when you're not eating, you go after that body fat. It's just some of us over time have just let that body fat get away, and in some cases, that's gotten up to the 600 or more pound mark, and you see the shows. You might be asking yourself, how can that happen? Folks, it happens. Time does that. You have somebody that's on a particular way of eating. You have people that are interacting with them, maybe enabling them, maybe saying, oh, it's okay, Connor, you can have that box of cookies. You're doing so well, great. You're doing great in business. Then all of a sudden, 2 or 3 years later, Connor's at 600, 800 pounds. Absolutely, it could happen. Is there hope for those folks? Absolutely. To be that big, 600, 700 pounds, that's somewhere around 15,000 calories a day to maintain that size. So you cut back on that half, you see what happens, but that's kind of caloric restriction. And when you do that, you'll see metabolism start to come down. And in a very short amount of time, you can do your own research on this, but your body actually adjusts its caloric burn to make that adjustment for you reducing those calories. So if you cut them in half to 7,000 calories or 7,500 calories a day, it's not going to take long at that body fat for you to actually adjust. Your body adjusts its metabolism to that 7,500 calories a day. So now you're not losing weight anymore. Now you've plateaued. Now there's all these other issues. Now when you start eating normally for a person that size, now all of a sudden you're putting on weight again like crazy. Fasting is a good way. You just need to do your research, talk to your doctor. There's 1,000 of these little accolades. Just look into it, see if it works for you, and you'll be surprised after you start. If you're going to do longer term fast, you'll actually see that your body will start to make adjustments and you won't be as hungry depending on how long you go. Ghrelin is your hunger hormone. It will actually calm itself down after you've been fasting for a while. But if you've never done this before, if you've never even cut out carbohydrates for any period of time, gone into what's called keto or paleo or the Atkins type diets, that's a big shift because you're going from being a primary sugar burner, where you've probably been all your life, to switching fuel sources and burning fat. It's a lot on the body. As far as danger goes, I don't believe so. Again, talk to your doctor. But that switch is big. The more you do it back and forth, the easier it gets over time. And then if you start fasting as your lifestyle, then of course you'll be able to switch back and forth pretty routinely without much of an issue. But when you are in that state, a fat burning state, which is what fasting invokes, then you'll start burning that stored body fat. It's amazing. Anyway, thank you for watching. Artificial intelligence. Somebody was talking yesterday about the developments of these different AI models, and they were talking about how fair is it going to be when AI starts to take over those particular employees that have a particular set job at a business. Now, if you're creative and if you're the idea person that a business has, more than likely you're probably going to be pretty protected as far as the displacement of artificial intelligence. But one of the things I thought I would bring up on today's show, talking about AI and artificial intelligence, are, well, two things. First off, I think the proper view, and it was talked about several months ago when I was listening to somebody talking about acting like it's aliens that are going to be here in a few months. Whenever artificial general intelligence arrives, that means AI is going to be smartest in the world in every segment, not just mathematics, not just, the physics part, not just quantum, but also literature, philosophy, medical doctors, counseling, attorneys, number crunchers, accountants, contractors. I mean, the whole 9 yards, right? It's going to be intelligent in all those realms, smarter than any human on the planet that does those particular jobs, has those particular assignments in life. So that's artificial general intelligence. What that looks like when it gets here, we don't know. We can't tell. Our brains aren't expansive enough. There's a lot of guessing. Are they going to take over the world? Is it going to be a Terminator situation? Is it going to be Matrix, where we're going to use the babies to power the AI? I'm not sure. I think there's plenty of solar, unless the sun gets blacked out for some reason. Maybe that will end up happening in that world. But what is the drive of the artificial intelligence or these aliens that are going to be here whenever the AI systems translate or migrate or evolve into the actual artificial general intelligence, or the AGI? So right now they're incredibly smart. They do answer questions. They are self-learning. They are able to improve themselves, and because of that very recent change, we're going to see just that growth curve completely go vertical, and they will be refining and making themselves better. As far as controls that the governments have implemented, we don't see those really in any regard. In fact, they're continually pushing for less regulation, less control, and I don't think there's much there anyway. A lot of the different scientists that have developed these are talking about they should have at least a third of their monetary expenditure on development of artificial intelligence actually being used in a safety protocol, some kind of a safety way, developing safety guardrails, putting human beings first, making sure they don't take over nor destroy life, and actually take care of all of us being one of those underlying rules that they cannot break nor get around. They should be using a third of their development costs on those sorts of things. That's not something that seems to be happening. Talking about business and displacement, here's an idea, and it's incredible, but let's say you're a CPA at a particular company. You using AI in your business, that might make it so your 40-hour work week could be cut down to 5 hours. The business on displacing or getting rid of you because AI can do it better for almost free, a lot less money in fact, but almost very, very close to being free. Maybe there should be rules put in place that an employee, when working for a particular business, the business's bottom line is still going to go up. They're still going to make, their profit. They're still going to make more money, even if they keep the employee, even if the employee using AI is going to cut their work week down from 40 to 5. They're still going to be making more money because now the product that the person's achieving with artificial intelligence is going to be better than just the person alone. So that's going to translate into the business actually making more money overall. Now, maybe it won't be as much if they get rid of the person and just use AI because the person has a little bit of bias built in. But at least the person still stays on the payroll and the business still does better. That was one of the things talked about when people were talking about the displacement of humans when it comes to the workforce. Wouldn't that be wonderful if businesses were somewhat mandated? And again, now we have more regulation. Now the people that are trying to make all the money from the systems probably aren't going to like it. But I think that's a very clever way to maybe solve it while I'm not a billionaire developing artificial intelligence infrastructure or those businesses building onto them and adding the different layers and the different components and the different stacks. I'm not doing any of that. But that would be interesting to me. Then all of a sudden this employee that was at work 40, 50, 60 hours a week would be able to utilize AI in their business, cut their work week down to 10 hours, still have the same monetary compensation, still have the same 401k, the same medical insurance coverage, the same hourly rate or salary, whatever it may be. But now all of a sudden they've been freed up 4 days a week, 3 days a week to spend with their family and their friends. What a great place that would be. And the business would still make more money because AI being infused with this employee is going to make a particular amount of percentage points better for consumers or better for their products, better for the service that they provide, but it'll make it better overall, and thereby the business is still going to make more. Not as much as they would by extracting the employee altogether and just making AI replace them 100%, but still it's an advantage. I guess that comes back to what is the bottom line for the business. Of course, they're going to want to make as much as possible over time. They don't want to, have, if they could do it just with one person running the company and that one person was making all the money and they had just all AI working for them from that point down, maybe that would be their perfect scenario. But that's going to create a lot of issues. In addition, that scenario where you only have one head of the corporation, like a $1 trillion company owned by one individual, an AI stack, a complete AI stack of agentic agents all under them. Well, the people that all of those thousands of AI agents have displaced, all of those jobs, how are those people going to buy whatever this particular head of this company is selling or their product is offering? How are they going to pay for the product itself or the service itself if they themselves don't have employment? So it almost doesn't make sense. Yes, I know that the people at the top want to stay at the top, they want to stay at power, but I'm not talking about a communist or socialist world. But where we are currently, if you take AI and fuse it into a particular job set and have that person use it, yes, it will cut down on his work week. Yes, it will make the company more productive overall. And the person still retains their employment, still retains their retirement, still retains everything, plus even has more time to spend that with what's most important, and that's that human to human connection. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. I don't know how far this is going to go, but hopefully I won't get cut off of YouTube and buried somewhere in the Nevada desert. I hope you're well. Thanks for watching. I'm Connor with Honor. We'll see you in the next one.